You're listening to Help Me, I'm a Comedian. It's a show where we ask a comedian to come in and share an issue or an incident of pain for them while a psychologist tries to help, maybe offer a little bit of insight. You're joined today by comedian Jack Knight and psychologist Dr. Rachel Hannam. Jack, your story starts with quite intense physical pain. Can you tell us what happened?
Oh, yeah. So, October just gone. I went ahead and flipped a car down a hill, which resulted in 4 fractured vertebrae, 2 broken fingers, busted knee, etc., etc. You know, this goes on. So, had that doozy, and now I'm sort of recovering, which is quite a long process when you do a spinal injury.
How did you end up flipping the car? Were you driving on the road, or what was the situation?
No, I was out in a rural area, just bushwhacking.
Yeah.
At the old man's place, and just flipped it down an embankment, popped the tyre on a tree stump that I didn't see.
What was going through your mind as the car starts rolling?
Probably a whole lot of glass, really. First thing that goes is the windscreen, you know. So
yeah,
not much happens too quick. People always talk about things slowing down when you're in like a near-death experience or whatever. It don't slow down. It's quick. It's quick as. Real fast.
So it's fast. Is it scary or is it peaceful?
You don't got time. You don't got time to feel nothing. It happens, and then you in the aftermath.
Do you think of anyone important, or was that a bit of a myth for you?
There's none of that. It's all.
And no fear? You didn't feel scared at any point?
You got no time. There's no time to feel fear.
What about afterwards?
You feel adrenaline. That's what you feel because you're busted. You got to get done what you need to done because you're in a bad spot. So I had blood coming out of me pretty hard and fast, out of my hands and knee. So you don't feel fear or nothing. You just get what needs to be done. You got to get back to a place where you can be evac'd.
Yeah.
You got to do what you can. So you don't feel fear.
So you don't. The only thing going through your mind is, what have I got to do?
Yeah, well, I said, what have I got to do is, is everyone else okay? Where am I? Where do we go from here? What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Where's the pain? Can I walk? Get it done.
You've also got a background in the army and in boxing, so you've dealt with physical stress and pain and been able to remain calm under fire through those two things. Do you think that helped you in that moment?
Yeah, well, there's an experience to be had in those realms. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, when you've played that game before, it's not so bad coming back to it. So I mean, I've broken arms and other things. So it's not unfamiliar territory to be in. It's just that this one was significantly worse than those that had preceded it. So, but I feel like most people just have that adrenaline kick in, really, because you're designed to. As a person, you were designed to have the adrenaline kick in to keep you alive for as long as you can. So
when did the physical pain really kick in?
Immediately. I could feel it as soon as I landed, but you just get done what you need to get done, and then you start going into shock once you start losing enough blood. Your blood pressure drops. It's just a physical reaction. You start going into shock like anyone would. And then that's where you don't feel pain too much when you're in shock. So added upside to that one.
Yeah.
Silver
so
lining.
From an evolutionary perspective, you're working fine. But
yeah, that's it. That's what humans are designed to do.
Yes.
Anyone in this situation would do the things that had been done.
What did you do after those? So when you said, it's time to take steps, you had to get back to the house somehow. Did you want to call for help? What did you do in that moment?
Well, so we were lucky enough to land on the wheels. Doesn't always shake out that way. So that was lucky. So I could just open the door. Car was actually still running, interestingly. So in that kind of state of where am I, the shock, I kind of got 2 steps out of the car and then turned around and turned the car off.
Partly that qualifies as a stunt.
Yeah, because you just don't leave a car running. It's impolite. So I better go back, fix that, Okay. And then it was just like, okay, how am I going to get back to the house?
Okay, so what did you do? Did you have to crawl back? Did you have a crutch?
I could walk. I was just in quite a lot of pain. So I did my thoracic spine, which is kind of between your shoulder blades and above the bottom of your ribs, sort of maybe floating rib up. So, I could walk. I could feel. I was all right.
Who did you meet when you got back to the house?
Well, people, it wasn't that far enough away. It wasn't too far away from the house, so people come to see me because you could hear it. You know, you can hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You made a bit of noise.
Yeah, that's it. It took out a fair bit of lantana, so, saved the job being done, I suppose. But, yeah, so Dad come down to see me and get me up the hill.
What was his reaction when he found you?
He wasn't pleased. It was his birthday party.
Yeah.
So I'd gone and done it on his birthday party. But everyone was just concerned. So we weren't too worried originally, but there were two people at the party who were nurses, clinical nurses, shock nurses, and they were like, hey, he needs to go to a hospital, like, immediately. Don't move him, kind of thing. So
what happened when you got to the hospital?
Well, they wouldn't let me move because they were worried about, like, my neck and stuff because I kind of landed. There were no seatbelts involved because it was just a bush bashing vehicle. It didn't have any. There was no safety, there was no airbags or anything. So I wasn't allowed to move for ages. They ended up doing two CT scans and an X-ray on my spine. So they had just had to lay down for ages until they'd let me move, and they had to stitch me back up. So I nearly ripped one of my fingers off, just like clean off. Yeah. So I was lucky to keep him. What
has been the impact of that accident on you long term? Has it confined you to bed? Has it changed you?
I had to take a week off work, which is probably a lot less than what the doctors wanted me to take. I probably written off for 8 weeks. And I was like, well, maybe if I'm on the doctor's salary, I can be written off for 8 weeks, but the rest of us aren't making it, So, but I mean, it has impacted what I like to do on a day-to-day basis. I keep fit. I enjoy boxing and fighting and all of that good stuff. And I can't do that. Not for a while. Not with my hands. I can't, like hitting things is out of the question for a bit. Getting hit is out of the question for a bit. So I can't do that. Even just stuff like running is out of the consideration for a while.
How much stand-up have you done since the accident?
Well, I did a gig 3 days after the accident.
Oh, Jack.
Because I'm bad at sitting still. So I locked in this tiny one-bedroom apartment at the time. I thought, bugger this. There was a gig up the road. I was in New Farm at the time. I was like, I'll just go do it. It's fine. No, it was fine. I was on painkillers, but still, still okay. I do have a relatively active part in Army Reserve, and that's been cut right back. Yeah. I can't do that anymore, which is a loss of income for a start, but also like it's a pretty big, relatively large part of my life. Been doing that since I was 19. And, I still get to see a lot of specialists, and moving forward, they may develop into medical issues that can't be rectified. So coming to terms with that was a doozy.
Mobility issues, or what sort of things might not fix?
Well, I mean, if my hands don't heal right, or if I'm just unable to operate at, even 95% of what is expected of a regular person, if I can't lift a certain amount of weights or whatever have you, I can't pass the examinations, then obviously that's going to impact on your career. Mm. It's not a role where you can get away with not being 100%. You need to be the best you can be to do what you need to do.
And are you in pain all the time?
Nah, not anymore. I definitely was for a bit. Like every day you wake up, you're in pain. Something spooks you and you just jump, you're in pain. And that, it makes you a little bit of a grump. Hardest thing was with the pain was staying away from grog with the pain. Because I don't really do painkillers. I don't like how they make me feel.
Yeah, can you tell me more about that? Why you don't do painkillers? Because you refuse them from the hospital as well.
Yeah, I don't like the way they make me feel for a start. Like you wake up real groggy. I'll take a hangover over painkillers every day of the week. And I've got a very long family history of addiction as well. So it's something that I know I need to steer clear of because those opioids can be a real killer, So it's just something I have to watch out for.
So you'll take paracetamol, but you won't go the morphine, or you just stay away from
I don't even really like taking paracetamol very much. I just rather tank the pain up to a certain point.
So how did you manage to stay away from the booze when you're in chronic pain?
Couldn't get to the bottle-o.
That's very handy.
It was a big one. But I've got the girlfriend to keep me on track as well. So she's good at that. She's, we're very communicative. It might be the word.
But you were tempted?
Oh, yeah. I probably drank more than normal, which still wasn't as much as what I used to drink or could be drinking in that scenario. So it wasn't too bad.
I want to ask you about, that one moment in time when the tyre hit that tree stump and you've gone over. It's such a short moment in time, as you said before, that's potentially changed your body forever, even if it's only 5%, like you said before.
You don't clock it for a while, to be honest. It's the last thing on your mind. You just deal with what's in front of you.
When did you clock it, though?
Probably laid up in bed. Laid up on we folded out the sofa bed in the living room, and I was just sort of laid up on that, and that was pretty much all I could do. And I was like, this might be a whoopsie that can't be undone.
It can't be undone.
No, so but I wasn't too stressed really, because I'll still get done the things I want to do, whether or not I'm 100% or not. Some organisational things I won't be able to do, but I'll still pursue the things I want to do regardless of injury or
pain
or debilitation.
Yeah.
You just keep fighting and get through it.
When you were laying in that bed, did it cross through your mind of, I could have died?
Oh, yeah, but, so could everyone. You know what I mean? You can have an aneurysm on the toilet. We're all close to death every waking minute. So
so you already had that sort of acceptance of the fragility of life.
Yeah, why stress?
Okay.
Why stress? You're going to die at some point. I was much more worried about injury than death. I was much more worried about being in a wheelchair than being dead. Dead's okay.
Yeah.
There are no consequences to dead.
So it hasn't changed your fear of death.
No.
Has it changed any part of your perspective?
Well, you become. I was always aware of mortality, but I wasn't aware of the fragility of the vessel, I guess, if that makes sense. So,
of how easily you could be injured.
Yeah.
So injured.
That's it. And, it's just, it's one of those things you think, not me, like every 20-year-old man in the history of time, it's like...
Thinks they're bulletproof?
Yeah, not me, I'll jump off the cliff. That guy hit a rock, but not me.
Yeah.
I'm not a rock-hitting guy,
So now that you're not invincible, has that forced you to change the things that you do? Has that changed you in any way?
The girlfriend has definitely kind of put a foot down on the near-death escapades. No motorsports for a while.
Seatbelts from now on?
Seatbelts. But for me, I mean... I don't know. I don't necessarily see the point of restricting what you want to do. Yeah, I knew the risks when I did it, and I still did it.
So this is a really interesting topic, people's perceptions of risk, because some people are very risk averse.
Yeah.
And other people are what we call counterphobic. They have almost no fears or phobias, and they don't think through risks and consequences. So if you think of that as a scale... from being completely avoidant of risks to being counterphobic and having no fear. Where were you before? Where are you now?
I was never like a daredevil or anything, but I was always just relatively confident in my abilities to just do whatever and not bust it up too bad, if that makes sense. Now I probably have a bit more of a realistic view of my limits or abilities, if that makes sense.
And maybe your own vulnerability.
Well, everyone's vulnerable to that much sheer G-force and impact. I feel like most people are vulnerable to that much blunt force trauma.
Jack, you have a wonderful sense of humour and a stoic attitude, I would say, because you're like, why worry about it? If I can't control it, why worry about it? Which is, I think, is classic stoicism, to just focus on what you can control. Has that been an attitude you've always had, or has that been bred into you by your life experiences?
Probably just a great deal by the men I grew up around and with, and the people I grew up with. I come from a very blue-collar working background, and my dad... he's had a lot of health problems his whole life. He had a lot of birth defects, etc. So my whole life I've always watched pretty disabled men get the work of a regular man done. So, you just pick up that attitude of, the world will keep spinning with or without you, no matter how busted you are. You can choose to get the job done or not. That's the choice you have.
So you stay out of any sort of mental story that you're a victim. Like your dad was the opposite of a victim. He was a victor. He kind of overcame.
Well, he's meant to be dead. He was meant to be infertile. Here I am. He wasn't meant to walk. He's still running around. You get to pick your narrative to a certain degree. So I mean, a lot of people do kind of fall with big injuries. Definitely I felt the urge to kind of go, well, that's me. Call it a day. I don't have to do certain things anymore because I'm busted. But,
As in kind of give up, resign yourself.
Yeah, it's like, well, why stay fit? I'm broken. Why, why keep these personal standards when I have mitigating circumstances? Yeah. But you just can't respond that way. I mean, you could, I guess. No one's stopping you, really. You could, but
what you saw growing up.
Yeah, it's just a personal sense of pride and, a certain expectation of self and what you believe you want to be or be seen as.
There are great rewards to that attitude for getting stuff done and pulling yourself up from a tough situation. Can you see any costs in the way you are?
Oh, yeah. There are costs to everything at the end of the day. I and most of the men I know and grow up with, we've always had anger issues, always, because that's worked for us. Being angry works. That's how you get things done. You go to work, you get mad, you do the job, it's done, bills are paid, family's fed, And because that's a functional system in certain walks of life, at work and in fighting and even in some degrees in comedy, anger works for me. Yeah. I see people who are better than me. I go, I'm going to be better than you. And out of spite, I try to get better than them, Problem is that you can't take that walk everywhere. You can't take, I can't deal with kids because they don't have that in them. They're just faffing about. Get a job, get an ABN, do something with yourself.
Well, it's not conducive to human connection, is it?
Well, no, not necessarily. That's precisely right. So,
It's conducive to survival.
Yeah, you become an objective-based person. You say things you need to get done and you get them done at the cost of whatever's in the way quite often. And that's just, on a case-by-case, you just got to say whether or not it's worth it. And that's the cost of living with that attitude.
When something like that anger bubbles up and it just takes over us, does that say something about our ego? Like, we've got this unconscious mind, we've got this conscious mind, and I'm assuming the conscious mind is supposed to control the unconscious. But when it gets overwhelmed with whatever habit, whatever habitual behaviour comes up, is that saying something about our ego? Is it small? Is it weak? Does it need work if we are getting overwhelmed by our instincts?
The instincts at that physiological level, just that fight impulse, for example, or the flight impulse, will hijack our mind, and then depending on what we've learned and the messaging growing up and the stories and narratives we're living in, the emotion, the physiology will hijack our thinking minds, and then we can very easily get caught in a narrative, like you said, Jack, of, they don't think I'm good enough, or, some defensive thought or some judgment of the other person or some judgment of ourselves. That's the ego part, managing other people's perceptions of me or managing my own perceptions of me with the information I have available to me. And like you said, that would possibly be quite limited for all of us. And then, we're absolutely on autopilot, stumbling through situations, not bringing much consciousness or awareness to it. And sometimes we have to suffer a lot before we hit some kind of a wall and think something's got to change. And at that point, some awareness, some consciousness emerges of like, I might have to find a different way to do things, and I might need to get some more resources, a bit of help, a bit of advice for that.
You're listening to Help Me, I'm a Comedian on ABC Radio with comedian Jack Knight and psychologist Dr. Rachel Hannam. Jack, where are you at with anger at the moment? How are you planning on using it, changing it? What's your attitude to it at the moment?
I'm at a certain point in my life now where I've gotten a relatively good in my opinion, at least. Take that for whatever it's worth. But it has a day-to-day use for me. You know what I mean? Like, I wake up and go to work. I hate going to work. We all hate going to work, and I hate the system that makes me go to work. But if you work hard enough, you can beat it. Do you know what I mean? Work hard long enough, get the suffering done.
So I wonder if that's anger or resentment, because there is a difference.
Oh, there is a difference. They're tied to each other.
Oh, they are.
You know?
But anger is a very useful emotion because it tells us that something is not okay by me or my boundaries have been violated in some way, whereas resentment is I have unmet needs, but I'm kind of blaming other people for that. So, yeah, they're definitely related. But which one do you think?
Well, it's not necessarily an unmet need.
Okay.
You're forced to live in the world you live in. That's where you're at. You got to pay bills. You got to get up. You got to go to work. You're pretty well.
We're in the system. Yeah.
You're out of luck if you don't want to be that way.
Mm.
Too bad. So you don't get a choice.
Does your job not meet needs for you though?
So I work in collections, which is a rough job to work in. But it's mostly phone work. It's a very frustrating job, but it pays. It doesn't pay great, but it pays what I needed to pay to get to obtain the other things I need. Maybe there's resentment to it. I'm very lucky to have pretty much figured out what I want to do in my life. Really, I know where I want my life to end, and you resent what you got to do to get there. To me, the purpose of life is just pottering around and doing the things you want to do. Grow some plants, do some wood carving, express yourself here and there, do whatever you want to do in the long run. That's what life should be about. It should be about community and just making sure everyone's fed, and then you can do what it is you want to do, But that's not how things are.
Yeah.
Probably never will be. Hasn't been probably ever. It's probably an idealistic worldview.
You mean it's a too ambitious social climbing kind of world?
That's exactly right. And I get quite mad that it's so ambitious. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It doesn't sound like a lofty goal. It's like, this dude just wants to calm down in a field and carve some wood.
Yeah.
But it is a lofty goal. Good luck doing that and eating. You know what I mean? It can't be done. So it's frustrating to wake up every day, know what it is you want to do and where you want to be.
Yeah.
And then you're like, this is the dangling the carrot. Here it is. Wade through the fields of mud to get there.
Rachel, this must be a common sentiment where people feel stuck at work. They have to be there. Is there any way they can make the experience of work more fulfilling and comfortable?
It's such a great question because I do see it a fair bit in my work that people are, stuck in jobs that feel meaningless or repetitive. They aren't honing a craft, getting that sense of mastery or meaning and purpose. And they do need to aim for those needs to be met outside of their job. So, perhaps they coach the kids' cricket team or do stand-up comedy or whatever to try and get some of that outside. And it is a shame that our system of living is set up so that there are these jobs which are monotonous, repetitive, and don't give meaning. I guess a substitute for that could be the relationships with the people around you. If you're lucky enough to, have one or two trusted comrades in the trenches. Yeah. So working on relationships and working on having those needs met for meaning, community or purpose outside of work. We're all born with hope, which seems like a funny word to apply to an infant, but we come into the world hoping or expecting and certainly hardwired for love, support, protection, connection. And so there's a hope that's intrinsic in us. And then what happens is we don't always get protection, support, empathy, care, which we're hoping to get when we come into the world. And then something in us adapts to that. We pull away. We maybe switch off to those needs or switch off to those feelings. And then how that affects our stories as we go through life.
Well, I guess
interesting.
I guess it's kind of like the sun. It's the same for everyone, but it's the lens you look at it through. Do you know what I mean? If you're in a garden, sun's a beautiful thing. If you're in the desert, you're going to die. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the context.
It's all about the lens you look at it through, I suppose.
as you work harder and more consciously on being better at human connection, as you said, what does that throw up for you when you go home, when you see your family of origin and you do things differently to them now?
Well, I mean, to me, it's a sense of refinement, I'll almost say.
Okay.
You get to see the people that come before you and they've gifted you their mistakes.
Yeah, that's a great way of saying it.
You get to see them and you get to see the repercussions of them, and you can say in everyone is a great man or woman. But you get to see that and see the mistakes and go, well, I won't make those.
It's instructive.
Yeah, that's right. History's instructive.
Yeah.
You read about the rise and fall of empires and, the history of people. But it's in the minutiae where the wisdom is.
Yes.
Everyone loves to read about wars and all that sort of stuff. But you got to look at the history of people, of villages and their lives. And, so you look at your parents and you go, these are the things I admire about them. You'll never be, in my opinion, a completely different person from your parents. They're in you, in your psyche, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
It's what
but you can be discerning as you're
get to
explaining.
Pick.
Yeah.
You get to pick.
I'm going to keep that because that is going to work for me, and that don't want to do that.
That's precisely right. I grew up my lot of addiction in my family. Dad was bad with grog. His dad was bad with grog.
Yeah.
Our whole line of the family. Dad's not a biological. It's a psychological. It's a cultural thing. My dad was adopted. It's not a bloodline thing. We're cultural drinkers.
A learned behaviour.
Yeah, that's right. And my older sister had very, very strong addiction issues. So that I saw that and I went, well, I don't want that. Yeah. But I also saw, the way that side of the family could be the life of a party. And bring life and joy to other people in that circumstance. So I want to do that, but I want the addiction that comes with it.
What can we make of using anger as a fuel? If we do decide to put anger in the tank and that's driving us, is there anything we should know, Rachel, about that as a fuel?
I think we just need to be careful with anger because there's a difference between feeling angry and getting angry, because getting angry takes you closer towards violence. Your aggression and then can easily tip into violence where you want to cause harm. But feel your anger, absolutely. And anger is one of those, it's so interesting to hear your story, Jack, because in your story, anger, in your family, anger was allowed. It was okay. Maybe sadness wasn't allowed. Maybe fear wasn't allowed.
Well, yeah, and that's right, because that's how we've just done things.
But I've worked with families where anger was not allowed.
Yeah, bizarre.
Yeah, that would be bizarre to you. But
bizarre
it was okay to express fears because maybe it was a really anxious family, but anger was not okay. In your family, anger was okay, but sadness, nope, boys don't cry, those kind of messages.
And it kind of ties back into the conversation we were having earlier about me and my partner. She comes from a family where anger is not okay. Her family are very, very, they're great people, they're beautiful people. Not a lick of anger in them. Never seen it.
Is there any aspect of your softer side that you want to work on?
I guess comedy was always the most accessible art form to me because the gift of the gab is something I've had from a young age. I was a small boy. I couldn't fight until a lot later, so you get good at knowing where fire exits are and how to talk your way out of a brawl.
Yeah.
So that was something I kind of took to. But now I'm starting to try and pursue other interests. I'm getting more into my music and I've taken up wood carving as a hobby. Just whittling and trying to develop the side of myself that appreciates a slower endeavour.
Boxing and gardening sounds like the full spectrum. I think that's a healthy life.
Yeah, top to bottom.
You've been listening to Help Me, I'm a Comedian. I'm Ashwin Segkar, and you've also been hearing from comedian Jack Knight and psychologist Dr. Rachel Hannam.